Hello there, and welcome to this, the first episode of a brand new classic car podcast called The Tyre Kickers. My name is Matt.
And I'm Max. Now, Matt and I have been friends for way too long, but we're both obsessed about classic cars, old cars, well, any car, to be honest. Day or night, it's E-Type this or Alpha that.
In this podcast, we'll talk buying, selling, obsessing, collecting, fixing, breaking, and swearing. Basically, all the usual ups and downs of wanting and owning a classic car.
So let's pull out the choke and get this old banger started as we give you episode 1 of The Tyre Kickers.
So here we are then, a brand new regular podcast and hopefully a fresh take on the world of classic cars. Fresh, is that the right word, Max?
I'm not sure I feel fresh, to be honest. I think it's more like a different take on it, isn't it? I mean, the idea of this is to get me out of the house, and it's doctor's advice to do more, so this is cheaper than buying a dog.
Yes, but as well as help the aged, I think for me, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and while there are some good ones, and there are some good ones out there, there are some that I click on and I click off pretty quickly because they're just a bit nerdy. So hopefully we're going to be a bit more vibrant, a bit more opinionated. You know, we love cars, don't we? We love especially old British and European cars, and we've got some opinions.
I mean, you know this. My dad was a car salesman, so all the way through my childhood there was a conveyor belt of crap cars coming through, you know, the really mundane stuff. But I loved it. You know, I'd get inside the car, I'd play with the switches, I'd clean them, I'd have sleepless nights because a Morris Marina van was coming the next day. This is how sad I am. But that kind of stuff has stayed with me.
Yeah, I think we're both obsessed, but I wouldn't describe us as anoraks. You know, we're not.
I think other people might.
But I don't think I am one of these people, and I don't want to be one of those people. You know, the car shows that you see them, they bring their Mercedes Pagoda up and park it up and then sit in a chair behind it with their arms folded, and they don't want to talk about it. For me, that's not what classic cars are about. I think there's no better icebreaker than pulling your old car up in a pub car park at an informal meet and having a pint with someone and talking cars. You know, you could do it, and you just keep going, don't you, till the pub shuts and they kick you out.
Or even worse, if you go to a car show, pull out a seat and then pull out a seat for your wife, who can sit there and scowl at everybody who comes to talk to you. I mean, I do think that it is quite a social scene, isn't it, classic cars? And that's what is part of the great thing about it. You know, most weekends, certainly in the spring and the summer, there's something to get out and do. And that's what I really like about it.
So we should show our cards, really. We are classic car owners. We do have a classic car each that we're running at the moment. Max, talk about yours.
Well, mine is a 1966 Porsche 912. So it's the Porsche 911 body, but with the engine from the previous Porsche 356, the four-cylinder 1.6. I got it because I couldn't afford the classic 911 that I wanted, and the 912s traditionally are a lot cheaper. But, you know, they're almost a 911 in that you've got the whole body. It's just the engine is a bit smaller and a bit slower. And I bought it as a finished car. It wasn't. It's actually turned out to be a project, but I've really enjoyed the project. It's been going for 2 years now. It's a bit frustrating sometimes, and I'm not that great with spanners and screwdrivers. And when I tend to approach the car with a screwdriver, it just falls apart. But that's part of the fun because you think about it, you order parts online, you get people to do it. So it is a rolling project. And I suppose, you know, a car that's old is always going to be a bit of a project. And it's fun, you know, I think about it pretty much all day, every day.
Would it be fair to say that you bought the car as a finished car and took it apart?
It kind of took itself apart. I think when it broke down on the third
no involvement
time,
in it.
Nothing to do with me. The third time it broke down and left me stranded in a week, I thought, right, this obviously needs some attention. And it did need some attention because it had the wrong carbs fitted, the fuel lines were the wrong size, it had a racing camshaft, which I didn't know was fitted, that makes it, you know, at least 1 mile an hour faster. But it doesn't tick over very smoothly. So there were lots of things I've learned about it and changed about it that is getting it better. And it's kind of 85% there now, but not quite. Will it be ever 100%? I doubt it.
In terms of me, I've got currently a 1968 Sunbeam Alpine, red two-seater thing, pretty little thing. It's a good nick, chrome is nice. There's always more to do. I've done the interior last year, sort of worked my way through it. I like taking it to shows that, you know, where it's quite informal and I can talk to people and I can leave if it gets boring. But I'm also interested in doing it in pubs because I think that's part of the social thing. My car doesn't have a sat-nav, but it is really, really good at finding country pubs. It seems to have a knack of doing it. If only I could work out how to get it to drive me home, I'd be sorted. I'm not too mechanical personally, but I don't mind tackling trim and that sort of stuff. And I love blasting the B roads in it. But most people know what Sunbeam Alpine is. If you don't, it's the sort of MGB alternative. The first Bond car, it was in Dr. No. But an Alpine is a beautiful car. It turns heads. I get lots of sort of people going, what is it? Or I used to have one. It's the sort of perfect car that you can fiddle on yourself. You know, you're not scared of taking it on. If I had an E-Type, for example, that was pristine, I would sort of worry about sort of taking the gauges out or fixing stuff. I'd worry about breaking stuff. Whereas this, I sort of can be a little bit more gung-ho because the parts support's really good. The sort of club support and the sort of little community on Facebook and things like that's really good at supporting you in terms of like, oh no, just do this, or this is the way to do it, or, you know, it's very helpful. It's not a snooty sort of scene. And the car makes me smile, apart from when I'm going, what's making that noise and what do I have to pay for next, which is the, you know, the normal thing of classic cars, isn't it? But most of the time it works. It's never broken down. It's never overheated. So that's two out of 10, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty good, to be honest. And there's a very good point in that, is that what is too expensive to enjoy? Because if you do get into the more expensive stuff, you worry about parking it, you worry about a scratch on it, and it ends up sitting in the garage. So I think the cheaper end, I mean, mainly I'm saying this because that's all I can afford, but the cheaper end of classic cars is the most fun. So should we get tyre kicking? Because there's something that I'm quite excited about that I want to show you. And it should be appearing on your screen now, Matthew. And it's a 1979 Daimler 4.2 Vandenpla Auto. You can see that, can you? Burgundy, lovely car.
Yeah, that's nice. I never know the difference between Daimlers and Jags.
Well, this is essentially a Series 2 XJ6 with a Daimler grille and some Daimler hubcaps. But the important thing about this one is most of the Daimlers, the Vandenplas, were the double sixes, the V12. Only 2 people in Britain know how to tune a V12 engine from a Jag. And, you know, if once they die, it's game over. You just have to park it on the side. So I think this one, because it's the 4.2, it's very rare. I think they only made around 600, 700 of these. So you get the really simple engine and you get that beautiful XJ6 body. So it's got, it's got a bit of rust. Let's not pretend. It's down. It's on the auction estimate between 6,000 and 8,000. Bit of rust on the sills, bit of rust on the doors, and also the vinyl roof is bubbling slightly, but it's still an XJ6 and it looks tremendous, doesn't it?
Okay, we've kicked the chunky rubber on that one then. Let's take you to something smaller, petiter, and an absolute classic. 1979 Camtail Alpha Spider. It's on Car and Classic at the moment, and it's previewing ahead to an H&H auction, which is happening at the Imperial War Museum in Cambridgeshire, at Duxford, on the 13th of March. This one, it described as a well-maintained and subject to recent cosmetic refresh, and the estimate 17 to 20. Cool, alpha values have gone up over the years, haven't they? When I sold my 80s one in the 90s, I think I bought it for $5,000 and sold it for $5,000. But the Camtail is the one to have. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the Camtail. It's got the 2000 engine as well. It's just... People talk about the boat tail, and it is a lovely car, but if it had the 1600, it was a bit breathless. The 1750 was nice, but I think the Camtails, there's more of them around. They are a bit cheaper. Boat tail values are just silly now, aren't they? And trying to get hold of one is quite difficult, and they've usually rusted about 3 or 4 times in their life. That's a nice looking car. You know, that bright alpha red. Left-hand drive, I'm not bothered about left-hand drive, to be honest. Mine 912 is left-hand drive. I think it's fine. It's a bit of a resale issue, isn't it? But I'm not really that bothered about driving it because you're only essentially 6 to 12 inches on the left to where you would be anyway. So I think that's a good buy, actually. I do like those Alphas. You know, when you had yours, I used to love that car. And I think they're really good value for what they are. And again, you compare that to an MGB, the Alpha Tech was way ahead of the period MGB at the time.
Okay, so let's go on to one of our first regular talking points. It's called See It, Want It. It's about that moment you stumble on a car online. You were looking for something else, like some parts to fix the washing machine. But you end up looking at a car website or you flick at a mag and suddenly you spot a car and you think, oh, that's interesting, or that's cheap, or I haven't seen one of those for ages. And then before you know it, you're 230 YouTube videos into it. And through the power of lust, you want it, and you really want it. Max is a good case in point in this. He's a very frequent see it, want it kind of guy. So what have you got obsessed with this week? Try and sell it to us and see if you can get us excited.
Okay, first of all, Silver Shadow 2. What do you think about that?
Northern Comic, smoking cigar, big fur coat, just made their first million.
See, this is fantastic. This is the first time you're wrong, because that was the image a few years ago. But I think now, having seen a few at auction and having driven one, I think the Silver Shadow has come into its own. You know, it was cutting edge in 1965, monocoque body, fancy suspension from Citroën, V8, which is always good. And then it became naff. Everybody had one. Sometimes they parked it in their swimming pool. Bernard Manning drove one. There were 40,000 built in total, and then they ended up as wedding chariots. Bad. The one I'm going for is the Silver Shadow 2. Now, that's the one from 1977 to 1980. It was in production for quite a short time, so it's a lot rarer than the Shadow 1. Better steering, slightly better suspension, much better dashboard. Not as chrome heavy as the Shadow 1, which is a bit of a boat when you drive it. The Shadow 2 can go round corners. It's not going to trouble the ragged edges of grip, but it does drive really nicely. And you are pointing that spirit of ecstasy down the road. Got a standard 3-speed GM gearbox. Yeah, you don't really notice that. But when you actually get into them and you start playing around with the switches, the door handles, they're really well made. This is a real high quality car. And I think its time has come now because it's stopped being naff. People don't get married in them anymore. They're quite classy. And every journey you do in a Silver Shadow 2 is going to be an event. And I did drive one a couple of weeks ago and it looked nice from 10 yards, but close up, it was just full of filler. It was amazing. It must have been weighed down with filler. But when you drove it, really sweet car to drive. And you can't drive them in a hurry. It's really relaxing. I recommend a Silver Shadow 2 for about, 17 to 25,000.
Sorry, what is that? The first service, 17 to 25,000, or
first fuel bill?
Oh, first fuel bill. Okay,
first invoice.
So when did this obsession start? Because you and I sat in a Silver Shadow 2 at the Historics auction in Windsor last year.
I think so. Yeah,
because they're turning up all the time at the auctions now as they're sort of a curiosity, but not. They're sort of one of those ones that's in the auction, but it doesn't seem to be. They're not the main thing, if you know what I mean. There's always a car that's more important than that. But I remember sitting in that, and both of us went, "Ooh, this is nice," because it should be nice because it's a Rolls Royce. But it's the thing, and this is the drug of see it, want it. I think is you sit in it and you go. I think I remember sitting in the back. You were in the front, which is where you belong. You know,
delusions of grandeur. Here we go. Yeah.
Exactly. I want one with a window so I can put it up and I can't hear what you're saying. But we were sat in it, and I think this is the key thing. We go, what's this up for again? And then you flick through the book and you go, oh, it's an estimate of 10 grand or estimate of 8. And we go, that is a lot of car for 8 grand. And then you start thinking, right, I want it, because you can see the value in it, can't you? Because you couldn't buy the interior for that because it's beautiful leather and beautiful burr walnut and that sort of thing. Is that where the obsession started for you, or was it burbling before that?
I think I was always a bit obsessed, but you're right. That moment when we both sat in it, and then you start to think this is probably about the cheapest they're going to be now. I'm not sure Shadows are going to be much cheaper, and maybe they're at the bottom of the curve, that people will start looking at them in a different light and think, yeah, this is a good car. Because I think fundamentally, if something's made well, it'll last well. There's plenty of specialists around. There's lots of breakers, because lots have been broken, sadly. And the technology, it's expensive, but it's not really complicated. You can pretty much fix those in a standard mechanic. And I think the Silver Shadow is something to look for, because I was looking at them 2 years ago. Well, you're right, when they were about 11, 12,000. And the last one I sat in was about 19,000 at auction. I think it went for 21. And then I saw it up at a dealer about 2 weeks later for 28,000. And it was nice. So I think this is the time that people are starting to realize that you get, and it's that classic phrase, a lot of car for your money.
So what are the cons then? Let's talk ourselves out of this then. What are they? Let's burst the balloon on this sort of lust thing. What's the reason not to get one?
Oh, just the bodywork. The bodywork is so complicated because there's creases and swage lines and lots of bits that once you put filler in, it ruins it for good. I did talk to a bodywork expert about them, and he said really it's uneconomic at the moment to do a full respray because you take the paint off and the filler falls out. But if you can find one that's good and you can keep it good, that's the one to go for. That's why the cheaper ones, when you see them, you think, oh, well, that is really cheap, but then it'll cost you a fortune to get it up to a decent standard. I think pay a bit more on those and you get a decent body, and I don't think there's that much else to be scared of.
The thing for me I would worry about, maybe I worry a bit more about this than you, but I would worry that once I got it home, I would be praying every day that it didn't go wrong, because I would worry. I mean, you're sort of saying that, you can take it to your local garage. I'm not sure you can. Not sure you can. I think if you roll around the corner in your Silver Shadow 2 and say, "Excuse me, mate,
They're going to be
I've got a
they're going to be
knocking
getting the
sound, would you?"
calculator out, thinking, right, let's bump up the invoice on this one.
Well, they're not going to. Then, to be fair, I think a lot of garages just say, "Look, I don't want to get involved." But I wonder if you did do stuff. I mean, you're saying the mechanics aren't that complicated. I'm sure they're expensive. So that would put me off. I think I love the thing. What is it you call it? You call it old time. They've lost the old money thing, and they've got the glamour. What's your phrase for it?
I think, they used to be very much new money, but I think now they've made that switch into an old money car, like an old Mercedes Estate, for example, or an old Volvo. I think you would want to buy something else if you want to impress the neighbours now. So the Silver Shadow is free of that moniker. I think now it's an enthusiast's car. They're slightly better looked after. There's a few specialists around that aren't outrageously expensive, and there's good breakers because there's so many around in Britain in parts. You can always get the parts for them. It's not that difficult. It will be more, it's going to be more expensive than an MGB, which is the baseline, which is the control of the experiment in the classic car world. But you get so much more from it.
So you've been talking about wanting to buy a Silver Shadow for the last 6 to 8 to 12 months. Why haven't you bought one?
It's a very, very, very slow process. It doesn't happen that quickly for me. First, I have to see one. Then I have to think about it for a bit. Then I have to get the books. Then I have to read the books. Then I have to go and see another one. Then I have to think about it a bit more. Then you get on the internet. Then you're never off the internet. I reckon it takes, for me, I've got a 2-year build-up. And at any point during that 2 years, I could be distracted by something else shiny. So if you actually get to the end of that 2-year point and buy it, I think it's quite a good one. And by then, I've virtually got a PhD in this car. So Shadows, I'm halfway through the process. I do like the Corniche, the 2-door coupes. They're a lot more expensive. But I think when you get down to the Shadow 2s, you've got a really good compromise car. You can get people in the back, put a good stereo in it, turn it into the rock and rolls. It would be a great road trip car for your mates. So Silver Shadow, I'm going to bring this to a close. The Tyre Kicker's risk rating on a Silver Shadow. Now, number 1 is a box fresh Toyota Hilux. Number 10 is a raced and rallied Lancia that's been parked by the sea. So where do you put the Silver Shadow in the risk rating?
Me personally, I would like to say, it's a 5. Let's be gung ho. I think for me, for the reasons I've mentioned, for me the worry is you get it home and then the money starts after that. It'd just be the running costs of it really that would scare me. So I think for me the risk rating, I think I'm putting it up as an 8 or a 9.
Oh wow, I'm a 6 because it's British. You've got parts. It's going to cost you some money, but you can always just save up. And that's the jeopardy. Where's the fun? Okay, hope you're enjoying this. This is the first episode of The Tyre Kickers. Now, next up, another one of our regular talking points. This one's called Crush It or Caress It.
Yes, this is where we pick a classic make and model and decide whether it needs to be fawned over or just flattened. Now, we flipped a coin before we started, and I've got the first go of this. And my choice is one you'll instantly know. So here we go. Mid-70s to early 80s, sports car, convertible, 2-seater, iconic shape, sold well in the States. No, it's not that pretty German one with the engine in the back. It's the wedgie one from the Midlands.
The TR7 is here, and sports cars will never be the same again. When you slip into the cockpit, the seats just kind of wrap themselves around you. And when you take to the road, it's more like flying than driving. The wedge design gives you incredible control. It holds the road like it had hands, and it goes like a bullet. TR7, the wedge from Triumph. Catch one soon at your British Leyland dealers.
So the shape of things to come. I think this is the shape of things that went wrong, wasn't it, Max?
I don't agree, and I'm going to give you one killer fact here. Joanna Lumley drove one in the new Avengers. Case closed, game over, pack your bags. The TR7 is cool.
I think she's dated a lot better than the car, though, to be fair.
I do see what you're coming from on the TR7, but I'm going to give you a list. Lancia Stratos, Series 1 Lotus Esprit, Ferrari 308 GT4, Aston Martin Lagonda, TR7. This is a cool car because it's a wedge. It's a period in car design. It's a period of time that we should look back at and actually admire and appreciate because it was a very, very bold design. And if you look at its competition, probably an MGB. Well, that was an old car at that point when the TR7 was launched in 76 in the UK. And then if you look at what the predecessor was, the TR6, it was complicated. It had that fuel injection that always went wrong, and it was a very traditional English sports car design. The TR7 is modern, and it had pop-up headlamps.
Well, let's have a look at a few on Car and Classic. I'm interested to see the values actually and what they go for now. 26 adverts. What's that one at the top? They were coupes and soft tops, weren't they? Which I think the coupe sold more, didn't it, than the soft top? I don't quite understand why, but
the coupe looks better. It's a more resolved design, but I think people also want the soft top. You want that English sports car wind in your thinning hair feel.
So what's that? 1982 is 3150. This one's in Oxford, 46,000 miles, manual 5-speed. Is that a soft top? Yeah, that's a soft top. Let's see.
Look, both headlamps are up. That's good.
Tick.
That's a start.
That's a start. Oh, it's sold. Oh, no. Okay. So it's obviously was good.
So I tell you what, let's move on from that one, that gold one. Look along the page.
Yeah, well, that's sold anyway. So let's
look at the Triumph TR7 V8, full restoration, ULEZ compliant, £28,000. Now, obviously, nobody's going to pay £28,000 for that, but just look at what it could be. This is what the Triumph TR7 could be. Both headlights are up. That's good.
I love the fact it's ULEZ compliant. That just deserves to be driven in and out of London quite a lot, doesn't it?
Flat out. It's got a nice interior. It's got the decent wheels. It's got the big TR8 badges on the back. It's even got a hint of a wooden interior, which I don't think is standard. I think that's an aftermarket. But look at that lovely steering wheel. You would like to be in that car, I think.
So look at the prices of these then. Sort of 5,000, 7,995, 7,000, 7.5, 6,2. I mean, if you buy sensibly, you get it inspected and that sort of stuff. You could have fun in that. That's a good approachable classic car, isn't it? And if you're trying to sell me now and tell me that its time is now, it's the shape of things to come, then perhaps it is a good time to buy one. It's not probably going to go up massively in value, but there's a really good TR7 club, I think. So you get support, you get the parts for these easily. It sounds like most of the engine bits and bits of trim. We certainly probably get bits of trim, although Allegros are difficult to get hold of these days. But joking aside, I think it's probably one of those cars that you wouldn't be frightened to take on necessarily. I don't think there's any particular horrors now with it. They're all probably sorted a bit like the Stag, are they?
Pretty much. I wouldn't get an inspection, to be honest, because I think they're cheap enough that you wouldn't need to worry about it. An inspection would just make you depressed. You'd just never buy anything at this level. There's a particularly nice blue one there, a 1980, which must have been one of the last ones, a TR7 convertible, which is the fourth row down for sale in Suffolk for $8,995. Now, that's what I'm kind of suggesting. It's really nice, light blue. It looks standard, got the standard wheels. It's a late model. It's got the tartan interior. $8,995 for that. Where's the risk in that? It's not going to go wrong that badly that it can't be fixed. All the parts are simple. The interior is intact. It's even got a TR7 floor mat on it. What more could you want?
So what are we saying then, Max? Crush it or caress it?
Definitely caress it. I would say the Tyre Kicker's risk rating on that is about 2.
Confident stuff. Well, if you've got a TR7 or you're a member of the TR7 Club, do you agree with what we said? Do you disagree? Drop us a line on our socials, comment on a post. We are at the Tyre Kickers UK on Instagram. So our time is nearly up on this, the first episode of the Tyre Kickers. I hope you're enjoying it. We've got a bit more tyre kicking to do first, though. We've spotted a couple of things. What have you spotted, Max?
Well, I've got a Porsche, which isn't a surprise because, I'm obsessed about Porsches. But let's have a look at this Elvis that you've picked because that's really interesting.
Oh, yeah. And this is almost like a see it, want it. It might make a reoccurrence as one of those because I have seen it and I do want it. 1965 gold Elvis TE21 drop head coupe. So essentially, in layman's terms, it is like a Rolls-Royce Corniche, hand-built, coach-built body, built obviously a British car, 1965. Think beautiful padded leather, think walnuts, think wow. There's one of these that comes to a local classic car meet that I go to, and when I first saw it, the first thing you do is go, wow. Second thing is, what is that? And the third thing, you find out that it's not a £500,000 car. It's like a £50,000-60,000 car. So essentially, have a look at this one. I have actually sat in this car.
Have you?
At the NEC, yeah, where it was on the Elvis stand. And they did mention it was up for sale then. And it's up for 80k, which is quite a lot of money. But what do you think?
I like it. I think the paintwork is a little bit strange.
Yeah.
in that it looks
Look at the
off-colour.
interior first. Look at the
Okay.
interior first, and then we'll
Should
come
we
back
ignore
to
the
the
paintwork?
There is a good point there. I think you need to look at that properly. But that the interior is beautiful. It's cream leather.
It does look very nice. It's a very cool car. I am impressed with it. I don't know much about Alvis's, to be honest. It's slightly before my time, but that is a decent car. It's had lots of upgrades as well, which is always interesting when you take a car and put slightly more modern things on it. It's like Harvey Bailey brakes, Cooper Craft kit, whatever that is. I'm guessing that's handling.
Sorry, what are you on about? I'm looking at the leather interior. What you're whittering on about the braking system?
No, I'm just reading I'm reading the description of it. It does look quite nice. I'm trying not to look at the paintwork, to be honest. The paintwork is putting me off because
you're doing
it's
other
lots of
stuff
overspray.
now. Yeah, there's a bit of overspray, and I think there's a little bit of filler on it. But I think if you could get it for the right price, this is a fantastic car. I would have this car in a heartbeat.
I think I might be getting you a pipe and cravat for your birthday because it feels a little bit old gentleman to me. I'm not sure that's quite your car yet. Maybe in a year or so. Not now.
I don't know. There's something about it. I would attempt if I had a spare 50, 60, I might make him an offer. Okay, enough about the Alvis then. Max, what have you spotted?
Well, I'm really excited about this. It feels like this is from 1979, this car, and it feels like this edition is a disco edition, sponsored by Donna Summer, because most of them have been 70s cars. But this is a 1979 911 right-hand drive Porsche Targa. Now, this is interesting for me, it's the 3-litre SC, which is the smaller capacity engine, but it revved a bit better, connected to the 915 gearbox, which is a bit more of a Porsche racing gearbox. In 1984-85, they changed these 911s to be the 3.2 with a G50 gearbox. But this is an early 911, so it doesn't have much on the bodywork. It's still got the chrome headlight surrounds and the chrome tail light surrounds, which are quite important because that's quite early. It's only got one door mirror, not the two door mirrors, and it's got the funky interior. Now, in the advert, it says there's a slight problem with the gearbox. Now, those gearboxes are known for being a little bit rough to use when they're tired, or it could be a new clutch. Whatever it is, take the engine out, put a new clutch in. You might have to send the gearbox away to be rebuilt. Bit more expensive. But at the end of the day, you get a 911 Targa in white, an early 1979 one, which is quite rare, with a Revy engine for not that much money. I think the auction estimate is somewhere between 30 and 40,000.
Guide price of 28 to 32,000. Don't forget your buy 15% going on the end of it. But it's a pretty little thing, isn't it?
Oh,
white,
it's gorgeous.
Though. Whereas white, what's the thing about white Porsches?
I think white in period colour is quite nice because it is a 70s colour, and in cars without air conditioning, actually, in the summer, you might appreciate a white car. But I think it's quite pure. It's got the nice chrome Fuchs alloys. It's a nice, clean design. It hasn't got the spotlights at the front because it's an early 79 car. I think that's a really good colour for it because it shows off the design and it makes a change from all the Guards red ones that everybody had in the time. It just looks a simple, clean, early 911. And once you got that gearbox issue sorted, which could be quite simple, might not, I think you've got a really, really good car.
Could be quite expensive, you mean?
Could be quite a lot of money. But let's just say we're lucky and it's just a clutch and fantastic and the 915 gearbox lasts forever. I mean, they're beautiful gearboxes to drive. So when you do get a nice 915, it's a real treat. A bad one is a horror, but the 915 gearbox is really, I think, the one to have because the G50s are a bit more normal where you really feel you're driving a 915 box. And that 3-litre engine, it's a corker. It's a peach.
One wing mirror, was that because the other one was optional in the 70s? Like Mercedes? Mercedes
so,
SLs were like that. You had to pay extra for it, didn't you?
Well, you have to pay extra for everything.
For everything.
Porsche, but I think that single door mirror makes it look a little bit cooler because it sets it out as a very early one, particularly the chrome headlight surrounds, which is a nerd point, but they were black in most of the later ones. But that chrome is really nice looking car.
You know your Porsches. 1979 Porsche 911 in white, 28 to 32,000. Would you say it's worth a punt?
I think if you could get it under 30,000 with that gearbox problem, you've got a real bargain. I think when you start to get into the 35s, it becomes a bit expensive because the gearbox could be, 3 to 5,000. The clutch could be 2,000. Once it's over 40,000, it might make a bit less sense. But if you can get that cheap and you can fix the gearbox problems, and there's loads of Porsche specialists all around the UK. I mean, there's hundreds. Loads of people can do that. And once you've fixed it, you've got a great car with a great engine and a great spec.
Okay, well, if you're interested in that one, it's up on auction on the 23rd of March. It's on classiccarauctions.co.uk. Go give it a look. Okay, well, it's almost time to shut the garage door on this, the first episode of the Tyre Kickers. Just a quick mention of our socials. Again, our Instagram page is live right now, the Tyre Kickers UK. Thanks to all those who followed us already. Honourable mentions go to Ian. He goes by the handle Defender Punk. He says, the idea of the podcast sounds great. Sign me up. More humour, less nerdy. Praise be. Well, we've sort of promised less nerdy. I don't think we've got a bit BL in this thing, and you've got a bit stato, Max. So we might need to dial that down a little bit next time. But thank you, Ian, for getting involved in the socials. Defender stuff. He's obviously really into his Defenders. You go a bit dewy-eyed when you see dents and canvas as well, don't you?
I do. I love it. I've had quite a few Defenders and I've loved them all until I drove them. And then I started to get a bit bored of it because you get rattled around, you get bounced around. And particularly on the series Defenders, it's very, very difficult to reach the national speed limit. And then you've got a trail of traffic behind you. I do like looking at Defenders. I haven't looked at them a lot, and I apologise to all the salesmen and the garages I've looked at them with. I am a little bit reluctant because they drive so badly. I think you can only do 10 miles to 15 miles in them. I know lots of people cross Africa in them, and all respect to that, but I don't think you can go very far in a Defender before it starts to become a bit wearing. Modern Defenders, as in like up to 2014, they're slightly better, but they're not quite as cool.
Do you think we'd get lynched if we did a crush it or caress it on a Defender?
Well, have you ever seen a
Defender? Would, wouldn't we? I'm just thinking we're trying to build an audience here, and Ian's like supporting us. But I think
not to alienate an entire audience.
Be unfollowing it. The shame of it. Maybe we do a slightly, not a tongue in cheek, but a slightly specific Defender, crush it or caress it. Maybe pick one of maybe the most overrated of the Defenders, or the most expensive or something, and then look at it. Maybe we'll think about it, Ian. We don't want to upset you. Thank you for getting involved. Also, a mention to Casting Classics, who said about the launch of the podcast. We like the sound of that. Looking forward to listening. They're worth a look as well. They list your car if for things like photography and film and that sort of stuff. You ever fancied seeing your car in a advert or a feature film or some fashion photography or something like that, go and have a look at them. They're casting_classics on Instagram. And actually, I've sent you an email about my car. So I've always fancied sort of seeing my car somewhere in an advert. It's not necessarily the cash of it; it's more the cachet of it. It'd be nice to have it in a advertising campaign on that sort of stuff. Would you list your Porsche?
I'd like to see something on Antiques Road Trip that I own, to be honest, broken down on the side of the road, infuriating B-list celebrities, as you see that all the time. They keep on changing car. Why is that a different car? Oh, because the previous one broke. That's right.
Casting Classics, I'll talk him around. But yeah, go check them out. Thank you for getting involved. If you want to get involved with the podcast as well, do go to our Instagram page. It's at the Tyre Kickers UK, at the Tyre Kickers UK. Give us a follow. Give us some feedback on this, and we'll post up pictures of our cars. We'll post up some details on the episodes we've done as well, just to try and get involved. Please get involved. It is your podcast as well. I am sort of trying to work up a Facebook page as well for those people on Facebook, just because we're all on it, or lots of people are on it. So I'll try and get that go. But hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and get updated on the next episode as that happens, and spread the word as well.
Yep, time to shut that garage door, but please tell 5,000 of your closest classic car friends to listen in.
And we'll see you on the next episode of The Tyre Kickers. But for now, though, bye.
Bye.